Moving on sa rubric, so for the first advantage naman, it gives detailed, descriptive feedback on the quality of performance. So since rubric provides a clear explanations of how well a student performed, it also shows what was done well and what areas you need ng improvement. So it makes the feedback more meaningful. Second, it promotes fairness, consistency, and transparency in grading. Because all students are graded using the same set of criteria. And that rubrics helps ensure na yung grading is fair and consistent. Those students also clearly understand kung paano nga ba ina-evaluate yung performance nila. Now, third is it encourages self-assessment and reflection. So, yung students, they can use the rubric to check their own work bago nila i-perform or bago nila ipasa. So, this will help them reflect doon sa performance nila and also take responsibility for their learning. Now, moving on sa disadvantages. The first is, it is time-consuming to create and design. So, making a good rubric takes time because a teacher must think carefully kung paano niya i-describe yung each criterion. Next, it may be too complex for simple tasks. So, for like mga short or mga simple activities, a rubric is not necessary. Parang hindi siya bagay gamitin sa mga simple activities lang because masyado siyang madetalye. It makes it harder to use efficiently. Now, third, overly detailed rubrics can confuse the student. So, if yung rubric na yun has many categories and masyadong maraming descriptions, the students might find it difficult to understand kung anong mga important kung ano yung pinaka-importante doon sa task na yun because yun nga, mas maraming masyadong descriptions. Now, moving on. So, kailan nga ba dapat natin gamitin yung checklist? So, first, when the task involves a sequence or steps or mga specific requirements that must be completed. So, yung checklist mas best siya gamitin if doon sa mga activities na yung students kailangan nila mag-follow ng mga set of procedures, mga steps, or mga specific requirements. So, it helps ensure that every part ng task ngayon is correct, is in correct order, and walang kulang. Next, ginagamit yung checklist when you only need to check if something is done or not done. Using a checklist when you simply want to see whether students have completed the task or include certain elements. So, it only focuses on completion, not on the quality of performance. Now, moving on naman doon kung kailan gamitin yung rating scale. So, it can be used when the task requires judging the extent, degree, or frequency of performance. So, a rating scale is useful siya when you need to assess how much or how often does the student shows that certain skill or behavior. For example, the participation, yung cooperation, or yung speaking fluency. Second, pwede din gamitin ang rating scale if you want to measure how well a student performed a skill or a behavior. Because a rating scale, yung goal diba niya dito is to determine the quality of the performance. So, it can be excellent, it can be good, or it can be fair. But depende na sa teacher yun. So, rather than paggamit ng checklist, dito mas parang gina-determine niya dito yung quality ng performance ng student. Nung kailan naman ginagamit yung rubric? It is used when the task is complex and performance-based. So, mas best siyang gamitin when the activity involves many skills or steps such as writing an essay, doing a project, or performing a task. So, it helps assess yung mga different parts ng work na yun. Like yung content, yung creativity, yung accuracy, or yung organization ng very detailed. Next is when students need clear expectations of quality and detailed feedback. Since a rubric provides a clear descriptions of each level, the students know and they can understand exactly what good work looks like. So it gives them a clear standards and will help them to see how to improve their work based doon sa feedback ng each criteria na yon. Moving on doon sa types ng rubric. So we have two types of rubric, which is the analytic rubric and the holistic rubric. Now first, let us discuss the characteristics of the analytic rubric. First is list and identifies major knowledge or skills. This means na yung analytic rubric provides and clearly shows yung mga important knowledge or skills na kailangang ma-demonstrate ng mga students sa performance nila. So, it breaks down what the teacher will look for, such as yung understanding, yung creativity, yung accuracy, or yung organization. Now, the second characteristic is it identifies specific and detailed criteria prior to assessment. So, the rubric gives a clear and detailed descriptions of what is expected before the students start their work. So this will help the students to know exactly what to achieve a good score. Now next is it assesses components. So instead of giving just one overall score, dito the teacher will look into the different parts or aspects ng task nila. So, yung each part na yun is checked separately to see how well it was done. Now, next naman, each criterion receives a separate score. So, yung every category or yung every criterion, like yung creativity, yung accuracy, gets its own score. So, this makes it easier to see kung saang areas magaling yung students and kung saang areas naman needs ng improvement. Now, lastly, it serves as a formative assessment tool. So, yung analytic rubric helps the students learn and improve while they are still working on doon sa task nila. Because it gives feedback that will guide them to do better, not just on the final grade. So, kailan nga ba natin gamitin yung analytic rubric? Now, first, when the task involves multiple criteria that each need to be assessed separately. Because an analytic rubric is best for mga activities na that includes mga several parts or skills, such as yung content, yung accuracy, yung creativity, or yung organization. So, yung mga skills na yun is dapat it should be graded individually rather than giving an overall score ng each parts. Next is when you need to give a detailed or criterion-based feedback. So when you use an analytic rubric, if you want to provide a specific feedback, mas magandang gamitin ang analytic rubric because it will help the students to clearly see their strengths and areas for improvement. Now, it is best for formative assessment. So, yung analytic rubrics, mas idea siya for sa mga ongoing learning because it gives a detailed information that will help both the teacher and the students in improving before the final grade is given. So, next is the analytic rubric for formative assessment. So, anong type of task ba dapat gamitin natin yung analytic rubric? So, in this type of rubric, it is best to use sa mga complex, skill-based, or sa mga process-oriented tasks such as like writing essays, creating a projects, or performing experiments that requires time and multiple steps to complete it. So, it will help the students see kung saang parts pa sila magaling and or kung saang parts ang need ng improvement. So, they can focus doon sa pag-enhance ng work nila before the final grading. Now, next is the context of use. So, yung analytic rubric for formative assessment is used during the learning process, not after. So, the teacher uses it to give feedback or to give a constructive feedback doon sa students while they are still working on doon sa task nila. So, the students use the feedback or use the criteria, yung feedback na yun, to revise, to correct, or to improve yung performance nila bago nila i-submit. Now, let us move on doon sa second type ng rubric, which is the holistic rubric. Now, let us first discuss the characteristics. For the first characteristic is, each category of the scale contains several criteria yielding a single score that gives an overall impression or rating. This means na yung instead of scoring each part separately, dito sa holistic rubric, the teacher looks at the students yung overall work na nila and gives a one general score that reflects doon sa total quality ng performance nila. Now, second, it combines several criteria into a single score. So, yung all mga important parts or yung mga important aspects like yung content, organization, or yung creativity is they are grouped together na to measure the overall performance of the students rather than giving a detailed feedback for improvement. Next, it is best for summative assessment. So, this type of rubric is usually used at the end of a project or activity to give a final grade. So, it measures the students yung overall performance nila. Next is the uses broad performance levels. So, yung mga descriptions dito sa holistic rubric is masyado siyang general and broad, such as yung mga description, excellent, good, or fair, or needs improvement. So, yung each level na yun explains yung overall quality na ng work ng students without separating yung mga specific details.